The old urban crisis was really the crisis of the center city and of people and jobs, companies moving to the suburbs. So, in a sense, the middle fell out of the center city. The middle class left, the jobs left, and the center city became what was called at the time, which my professors called the hole in the donut. There was a hole there as everything vacated to the suburbs. The new urban crisis is quite different because it is partly a crisis of success. It is partly a crisis of the urban revival itself, as you mentioned. But I think there are three or four dimensions that I try to sort through in the book that are worth repeating, and then I want to get to why I think this is the central crisis of capitalism, and represents a very big political contradiction, certainly of American capitalism, and capitalism in the Bay Area and Greater New York and knowledge hubs like Boston and D.C. and Seattle and so on. The first dimension is the rise of what I call winner-take-all urbanism, where there are a very small group of cities and metropolitan areas. The San Francisco Bay Area surely would be one. The second would be the Greater New York City area, Los Angeles, Boston, Seattle, Washington, D.C., and more. And certainly a few more than that if we look globally, London and Paris and Berlin and Shanghai. And I go through a systematic effort to identify those in the book. But basically, these winners, just like we have a winner-take-all economy and a winner-take-all celebrity economy and winner-take-all CEO economy, these winners get the lion's share of talent, the lion's share of economic assets, the lion's share of technology, finance, media, entertainment industries. And places like New York and London and San Francisco and LA have just grown their shares of all those things. So the second dimension is that, and that is creating a kind of gaping geographic inequality between these centers. If I was a right-wing person or a populist, I would call them of the urban elite. And the rest of the country. And as I mentioned in the book, it is that gaping geographic inequality that has produced the backlash that gave us, quite terrifyingly, Donald Trump and Trumpist kind of populism. The second dimension is that the winners don't come out of this unscathed. In fact, they are very deeply scathed, because guess where inequality, economic segregation, the decline of the middle class has been the largest? In the most vibrant, the most advanced, the most affluent, the densest, the most technologically innovative, the most high-tech, the most well-educated cities and metros. So atop the list on the new urban crisis stand the same places: San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles, and so on. So the winners have this growing crisis of success. The third dimension is, of course, what I call the crisis of the suburbs. It is not only that the urban crisis affects the center city, but as the affluent top 10% of our economy have moved back to great cities like San Francisco and New York, the bottom 10% of our income distribution has been pushed out of cities. And where do they go? Well, of their neighborhoods. Some go to other relatively disadvantaged urban neighborhoods, but a large share of them go into the old, close by, distressed working class suburbs. So the rate of suburban poverty is, we have more poor people in suburbs than cities. The rate of suburban poverty is growing faster than it is in cities. If you're a poor person, it's harder to subsist in a suburb because the kinds of services you need aren't there. And all sorts of other crime and violence, the opioid epidemic, violent crime increasing in cities. We could go meth houses, all of this. And I talk about several other dimensions, but the one I want to highlight here, because just we want to be reasonable with time, is that if the old urban crisis was the decline of the middle class in cities, the new urban crisis is about the decline of the middle class across the board.